Good evening, everybody. All right, wait, we on YouTube. All right, we on Instagram and we on Facebook. What's up, everybody? It's good to see y'all again on a Wednesday night. I told y'all I'd be back. I had to keep my word. You know what I'm saying? It's good to see you. I'm gonna let some more people come on. I know some of my TGM mics supposed to be coming on. So I'm eager to see my TGMites. I haven't seen y'all in a while. Before we get started, I just want to remind y'all that we are in Exodus. It's the second book of the Bible, and the rest of this month we are going to be in Exodus. While my TGMites come on, I just want to let you guys know we will be going back to our morning service next month. It's really ironic because this is going to be like the anniversary of the TGM actually doing a Sunday service. So just letting everybody know about that. We do start at 8:30 and we are going to start back the first Sunday in October. All right. So with that, it's good to see you, my TGM television, my YouTube crew, my Facebook Live crew, my Instagram crew. I don't see too many joining, but I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm not gonna waste no time. Tonight we are in Exodus, Exodus chapter 17, and I'm going to read from the King James Version. This is my Bible, Noisy Cricket. All right, we're going to Exodus chapter 17, verse 1 through 7. All right, and I'm going to read that and you can follow along with me. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of sin after their journeys according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide or contend with Moses, and said, Give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, Why chide or contend with me? Do you know that you're tempting the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moses and said, Wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, What shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so on the sight of the elders of in the sight of the elders of Israel. In verse 7, and he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because the chiding or the contending of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not? All right. And so tonight, as we do on Wednesday nights, we are not going to tag it, but what I do want you to do is I want you to kind of pick out these. I picked out three things to kind of help you along on your journey. For those of you who are trying to live the Christian life, hopefully I can give you something tonight that is going to greatly benefit your faith. All right, and so we're going Exodus chapter 17. Um, and so as I started last week, I started off talking about that Exodus is a book of transition. It is a book of transition, and I want to stress that God is taking the nation of Israel from one place to the next place. He's moving the nation of Israel physically from one place to the next place. And Exodus has a lot to do with their journey out of Egypt, going towards and into the promised land that God had promised. And so one of the things that I did talk about last week was it being a book of transition. And so we're going to take it a step further. And last week we talked about just transitioning, but the transition that I want to speak of tonight is not just physical. And so I want to put this word in your mind, transition. All right. Transition, not just physically to a new physical place, but when I say transition, I'm talking about transition in mindset, right? Transition in morals, transition in motives and values, transition in lifestyles and habits. And I think one of the reasons why I do love Exodus is it shows you the difficulty of not just moving his people from one place to the next place, but it also shows you how even though their bodies were physically out of one place, their mindset was still in the same place. And I think we don't highlight enough the work of God when he does a move or a shift in our lives. Everybody ready to go to the next level physically, but the question is, are you ready to leave some of those that mindset, that old mindset behind, those old morals behind, that old value system, those old lifestyles and habits? And so I love Exodus because it shows the gradual progression of God transitioning a people to a new normal. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I have definitely experienced my life being completely one way, and I call it normal, and I call it, this is my, this is where I belong at. And then something just happens, right? And it automatically shifts my life to something different. And then all of a sudden, what I thought was normal now is never going to be that way again. And I know some of y'all can identify because we're going through this COVID-19, right? And COVID-19 has completely transitioned a lot of our lives from being what we thought as normal, and now we have a new normal. Now, everywhere I gotta go, I gotta wear this mask, and sometimes I forget it in my car, and it becomes annoying because you gotta go all the way back. But I wanna highlight the fact that God in Exodus gradually progresses a nation of people into a new normal. And so what it sounds like is, all you have known is slavery, but I want to teach you how to be free. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it is a definite transition when you go from being in one state so long to another state. And I always stress this, especially with new converts, that everything about your life changes when you allow God to come in. When you allow God to come in, everything about your life changes. And what it is a gradual progression. And God says, all you have known is slavery, but I want to teach you how to be free. What if that's for you tonight? All you have known is dysfunction, but I want to teach you functionality. All you have known is living paycheck to paycheck, but I want to teach you abundance and wealth. All you have known is toxic relationships, right? But I want to teach you how to be happy, how to be whole, how to be at peace, how to have a house of love and understanding. What if God is saying to you, I want to transition you from where you have been to what I have for you? God is changing what they know as normal. And the difficult part about that is that sometimes we don't recognize that our normal is toxic. We don't recognize that our normal is dysfunctional, right? We don't recognize that our normal is not healthy. And then when God goes about to move in the right areas and in the right ways in our lives, right, we resist that change and transition because we're so used to what we consider as normal. But I wonder if, and sometimes, the way that I do, sometimes I just think, right, that maybe the COVID is actually here to do something different than what we initially think that it is. What if God is trying to get you to see that what you consider is normal is probably not the best decision for your life? And so what God does in Exodus is he transitions them. He transitions them. And here's what I like about it. It doesn't just begin and end with rituals. What God tells them as far as the 10 commandments is, he gives them how to handle each other, how to treat each other, how to deal with your neighbor, right? How to deal with, you know what I'm saying? It's basically a way of saying that God doesn't want it just to stop at religious rituals, but he wants it to become a way of life. And I want to stress that because most people believe that God only wants you to come to church. But Exodus points to God showing them a new way of life. And I want to stress this, that God cannot just be a church experience, but remember that word, the number one is transition. God is a life experience. And I want you to get it, that bringing God in your life is going to bring about change. And so look, the first point is transition. God wants to transition you. God wants to transition you. God wants to transition you. All right. And so how does he does that? He does that by an exchange. And I talked about this a little bit last week, how you go, in order to go from one to the next, you have to be willing to let go of what was. And so I'm going to use, when I say transition, I want to use my transition out of quitting smoking, like by 8-9 years ago. And so All of the time that I was trying to quit, I was trying to let go of, I would stop, but then I would pick it back up. But the thing is when I say transition, it's putting down one in order to pick up another. It's stopping one in order to start another. And what I didn't realize, and there's a scripture in the Bible that says, is that when the demons came, right, and then you got the strong man come in and he cleaned the house and he leaves the house clean. But when the demons come back and they see it clean and swept out, but it's empty, right? It's empty. And so what he does, he goes to get about 7 or 8 more of his friends, and they all come back and reside. And I want you to understand that when I start talking about transition, it's not to leave an emptiness, but it's so that God can fill the emptiness with something. In other words, what I'm saying is putting down the one in order to pick up another. And so what I realized was that in the process of me quitting smoking, I couldn't just let one thing go. But what I did is I stopped the bad habit so I could pick up a good habit. And so I don't just clean out the bad, but fill it with good. And so when you see Exodus, it is God breaking their unhealthy habits, right? But he's teaching them his ways, which are productive habits. Don't just clean out the bad, but he wants to fill it with good. All right. And so we move into number 2, water in the desert. I want you to pay attention to this because at the beginning of the 17th chapter, we talk about how God had water to come out of a rock, right? That God had water to come out of a rock. And it's a continuation. That's why it's good that we read in Exodus, because the first thing that God does when they come out of Egypt is he brings water in the desert of sin. The next thing that God does is he brings quail and manna in the desert of Shur. Now, here in the 17th chapter, he brings water to Rephidim. And here's what I want to point out. In 3 different places, God brings 3 different resources, and it is God showing them he had a solution for every problem. But here's what I want you to feel me on number 2. They couldn't appreciate God's provision because they were so busy complaining about the problem. All right. And so number 2 is this: stop complaining. Come on, say that. I got to stop complaining. I got to stop complaining. I got to stop complaining. Stop complaining. The problem with complaining is it focuses your attention on the wrong thing. And I want you to get this. What's up, my brother? I want you to get this. I want you to get this. I want you to understand, right? The only thing that complaining does is it focuses your attention on the wrong thing. All right. And so I'm gonna give you an example of what I mean when I say stop complaining. So one day, most of you know this, some of you that do don't know this. I work, and when I do my work, I work outside, right? And so I have to fix big machines, and so these machines are outside. So this one particular day was raining, but I had to get this machine fixed. And so if you know anything about me, I was upset. And so I'm in the car, I'm fussing, I'm just mad, and I caught myself crying out to God in frustration. I was frustrated and I was praying to God in frustration. I was trying to get my point across. Like, God, you see me out here trying to work and you're going to put me out here. So make a long story short, I got out. I'm doing a repair. I get completely soaking wet. I mean, completely soaking wet. The whole time I'm mad, I'm complaining. I finish the job. I get back in the car. Look, something happened where I had to turn around to back up. And I want you to hear me. The whole time I was complaining, I was frustrated, I was mad. I turn around and guess what? The poncho to cover me up was in the back seat. And I want you to hear me because with this experience, if I had looked for a solution, I would have found a solution, but instead, the only thing I could do was see and focus on the problem. And how many times have you got so busy complaining about a problem, right, that you overlook the solution that could be staring you in your face? And so number 2 is stop complaining. Come on, say, I got to stop complaining. Sometimes you overlook the resources that you need that are right in your face, but you overlook them. Why? Because you so mad. And this is what I say. I ain't got nothing against the millennials, right? But they got it so easy. All they got to do is Uber. And I talk to so many young people that be mad because mama can't take them to the mall, but they got to get on their phone and Uber and they got a problem. I'm like, do you recognize, right, that when I was coming up, we had got on, my mama didn't take us nowhere. We had to get on the bus. And so sometimes in our lives, we complain about things, and each 3 of those different scenarios, God created a resource, but they couldn't see it because they were busy complaining. How many times have you gotten so busy complaining about what you don't have that you miss or overlook what you do have? God had a solution for every problem, but their complaining shows that they were focused on the problem. And so this is my problem with complainers, because complainers only focus on the negative. They cannot see the positive. They cannot see even anything optimistic, but they only focus on the problem and the negative. And so here's what I say. Seeing problems is not the issue, but focusing on the problem is the issue. Seeing the problem is great. We need to see our problems, but focusing on the problem is the issue. And you know what I say, where focus goes, energy flows. And so most of the time, people that complain, they complain because they only see the problem. And here's Israel. They in the desert, they going through all of this stuff, and instead of praying for a solution, they complain about the problem. And so for number two, stop complaining. You got to stop complaining, but you got to be able to pray for solutions. And I don't know who that's for, but look, that was a word for me when I was studying it, because sometimes I get so frustrated. And I know I'm not the only one, but I hope somebody can identify with that. How sometimes you just get so frustrated about the issues that happen in your life, the surprises and disappointments, and it makes you want to complain. But here's my word for you tonight. Number two, stop complaining, start praying for solutions. It shows that I believe in a God that's bigger than my problems, when I can see past my problems and start trying to find solutions. Just like that day in the truck, I was getting wet. I was getting completely soaking wet. Had I stopped and taken the time to simply look for a solution, I would have found the solution to the problem. So how many of you, I want you to get this before I go to number three. Your solution could be a prayer away, but you missing it because you steady complaining. And I had to learn that. Still learning. All right. So number two, stop complaining, start praying for solutions. All right. And so here in verse 7, here's number three. Even after they had seen God do miracles for them, they still questioned his presence. Get that? Even though they had seen God do miracles for them, they had seen God open up the Red Sea, they had seen God destroy Pharaoh and Egypt's army, they had seen God bring water out of a rock, they had seen God rain manna and bring quail for them to eat. They had seen God do all of these things, but at the bottom of this 7 verses, it said that they didn't know whether God's presence was with them. And here's number three. Number three is you got to stop following God based on feelings. God does not move based on your feelings. I want to stress that, okay? I tell so many people who are living the Christian life, so many people who go to church, that God is not a God that is moved by feelings. God is moved by faith. And so I want you to understand that you cannot follow God based on your feelings, but you go, okay, let me give you an example so you can understand it. Let me give you an example. I'm at about 17 minutes. I'm about to turn it off. But look, I want you to understand your relationship with God is similar to being married. Now get this, when you get married, you might think that being married is going to eliminate all the problems, but in reality, it does not eliminate not one problem. Marriage, I want you to hear me, follow me when I say this. Your relationship with God is like being in a marriage. It does not eliminate problems. It does not make problems go away. Sometimes, in some cases, marriage can become a little difficult because of the problems, but marriage don't make the problems go away. But I want you to hear this, right? Just because you have problems, that does not change the status of your relationship. Are you getting that? And I want you to understand your walk with God is very similar to a marriage. Get it? You don't always feel it, but you know it. Right? You don't, come on, I want some real people now. If you've never been married, you've been in a relationship, and you know you're in a relationship. You may not always feel like it, but that does not stop what you know. Problems don't determine the level of relationships. No matter what problem you encounter, the status of your relationship does not change. And I want you to understand that about your walk with God, that being connected to God does not stop problems, does not change problems, but what it does is, just like a marriage, it gives you somebody, and in a relationship case, it gives you somebody to endure the problem along with. That person becomes your strength. That person becomes your encouragement, or should, right? But that's how it works with God. God's presence does not stop problems in your life, but neither does it determine your level of relationship. And I want you to understand that. The problems don't determine the level of relationship. No matter what problems you encounter, the status of your relationship does not change. And so here's what I want you to understand is that you got to learn to follow God based on your faith, not based on your feelings. The same is true when it comes to God. You cannot walk with God based on your feelings in the moment, because at no time do your feelings reflect the status of your relationship. I've been married before, and all of the time that I was married, I didn't feel married. But guess what? That didn't change the status of my relationship. And so I want you to get that and put that in the same mindset when you walking with God. Just because you don't feel like you got victory, that don't mean you don't have victory. You may not feel it, but you gotta know it. Just because you see problems or you feel problems, that don't come on. I want you to hear me when I say that. Look, you have to know it by faith, not based on what you see, not based on what you feel, but you have to know it by faith. And here's number three: stop trying to walk with God based on how you feel and start trying to walk with God based on your faith. I know I'm more than a conqueror. Why? Because that's what God told me, right? And not because I feel like it all the time. I know I'm saved, not because I feel saved all the time. I know I'm spiritual, not because I feel spiritual all the time. And so we've got to pray this: God, help me move from feelings to faith. I want to slap people, but my faith tell me that I got to give it to God. I want you to hear me when I say that. You cannot walk with God based on your feelings. And so they had a struggle, right? Because they were trying to follow God in their feelings. And I'm going to leave you with this tonight, and I'm almost done. You got to go from feeling it to knowing it. Go from feeling it to knowing it. I don't feel like it, God, but I know that you got my back. So with that, guys, I hope something I said encouraged you. It wasn't real deep tonight, but I hope I gave you some encouragement. I will be back next Wednesday night. I come on every Wednesday night at 8:30. Thank y'all on Instagram for tuning in. I see you over there. Thank y'all on Facebook. And thank y'all on YouTube. Please visit our website, www.thegodmovement.com. And I'm going out. You guys have a great night, and I will see y'all next week.